Now let's talk about the piston for a moment. Now I'm going to explain some things. The way a piston works that you may not know, but you're going to know now. Let me pull this chair a little bit closer. There we go. There we go. Now when you take your piston out, you want to look at it very closely on the outside. What these piston rings do is keep the combustion above the rings and in this area and in your head area right here. Okay? There should be no dark lines beneath these rings. And what I mean by dark lines is it'd probably look worse than this right here. What this shows is heat, which should not be here, but I think it's because the piston got hot. The way the rings work is this. The rings are spring tensioned. As you can see, they go like this, right? Okay, also, think about this. The rings move around. They're not in one spot. There's a little tiny pin in there that holds that, and they hold them in place so that when you have a huge exhaust port like this right here, like you have this gigantic, humongous exhaust port, that the ring ends are not sticking anywhere near that cylinder because they could catch and break. They're always either off to one side or the other, or they meet up in the back of the cylinder, which is just the way common sense that it works. Now the way the combustion chamber works, any of these pistons, now you may learn something new today and you may say, God, I didn't know that. The piston creates a very small, very compact, very powerful explosion in the combustion chamber. Now people think that the rings that are spring loaded, they stick against the walls of the cylinder because they're spring loaded. They don't. With an explosion like that, the hot gases would go right by those rings if they were set in place. The way it works is there's a small gap. I'll show you. Oh, we take this piston right here. There is a small gap in between the rings and where the pistons go. The explosion actually, and this is truth, word up, whatever, you know. The explosion will go underneath the ring from the top, okay, and it will push the ring surface up against the cylinder surface. That's what holds it. That's why it's very critically important that if you take your piston out, your rings have got to move freely all the way around in their ring slots. They can't be like, you know, stuck like this, or stuck like this, or stuck like that. We also have to remember too that your piston is not really round, it's slightly egg-shaped. That is for expansion when it gets hot. And what else? Oh, I was going to say one other thing. Now, always when you have an arrow on the top of your piston, and there is an arrow on the top of this one, that arrow always points towards the exhaust port right here. The reason is these pistons are a little bit more, how can I say, they are heavier built on the very front, just by a little bit. You can't see it, but they are, because that's where most of the heat is generated as the exhaust leaves the exhaust port right there. So you always want to have your arrow pointed towards your exhaust port right here. And then we're going to go on to chamfering, which will be in the next video. This is how to make your pistons better for racing and why. I'm going to explain just little things that I know that do work.